Hello and welcome. I am Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, and today I want to teach you how to stock a prepper pantry. Prepping has always been just a fun hobby of mine. I grew up, my mom was a prepper, and although she didn't know she was a prepper, she was always prepared. We always had food. We always had a back supply, actually down in the basement. We always knew that there would be extra food. We never worried about food. And so I want to teach you how to have that same confidence. Confidence in the kitchen, confidence in knowing no matter what happens, whether it's a storm or sickness or social unrest, you can feed your family in a healthy way and know that you are prepared. And that's what being a prepper really is all about. It's about being a Proverbs 31 prepper. And if you haven't already discovered my book, Proverbs 31 Prepper, I highly recommend it. It's a workbook and a study guide, and it just gives you very practical tips on how to be prepared. So I'll put a link to that down below. And some of what we're going to learn today, I've covered in that book. So this is kind of the live video of the book. So today is all about how to stock your pantry as a prepper and how to always be prepared. Never worrying about how you're going to feed your family. Because when you have that confidence, chaos can't catch you off guard, and then you're able to be in a calm state and know, I've got this, God taught me how to be prepared, and I can actually help my neighbors. When we're all chaotic with don't know what to do, we're of no value to anyone. And that's not how I want you to be. So thank you for watching. Now, you ready to get started? So today it's all about learning how to stock your pantry and be prepared. Now I've already done a video on what I have in storage in my pantry in the kitchen, my refrigerator, what I stock there, and then I even walked you into my other pantry in more of the laundry room area. So if you haven't caught that video, go ahead and check that out as well. Now you're always going to have your immediate 24 to 72 hour food supply. And that's what you already have stocked in your refrigerator and in your pantry that's in the kitchen. So always make sure that is well stocked with foods that your family love to eat. That's important. Now, when we go beyond that, I want you to be prepared that you could handle your family well if you couldn't get to the grocery store for an entire 30 days. That is our first objective, is to gain 30 days worth of supply. Then we move into 3 months of supply, and if you're really a prepper, you'll have 1 year of supply. I know that seems overwhelming. I do want to caution you though, there are a lot of instant foods available for storage, and they store for 30 years, and I agree with that part. But many of them are filled, almost 90%, with artificial ingredients, GMO ingredients, and foods that we wouldn't want to feed our family. So be very cautious about some of those commercials that pop up all the time with prepping supplies for 3 months and all of that. Be very cautious because the ingredients may not be to your level of desire. Now, to get started, it helps to take inventory of what you already have in your house. So what I would do is go through your kitchen pantry, your other pantry. I'm assuming you have 3 like me, maybe you don't, but go through your entire supply of food and take inventory. What do you have on hand? Because this is very important, and you may be surprised that you are more prepared than you thought you were. And this is the joy of it. If you have an RV, go inventory the food in your RV. Now it all has to be good food, nothing's gone bad or rancid, all of that. And if it has gone rancid, throw it out. It's of no value to anyone, and it will attract more bugs. So do inventory first. That's your first step. Go through your entire house. There was one time I had a full year supply, and we had food under the beds, in the closets, in the attic, everywhere. And I really felt good about it. But then we had a job layoff, and we went through a lot of it. And I didn't mind going through it because I liked experiencing how well I was prepared. So that's what I want to teach you today, is that confidence. So once you have gone through and inventoried everything, I actually have a 3-ring binder that is called my prepper book. I keep my inventory in the prepper book. So I just have regular college ruled paper put in my notebook. Then, so that's your initial page, is what is your inventory. Your second page is going to be, if I had to plan 7 days of meals for my family, what would I write down? What would they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And typically I don't allow snacks, but if you need to throw in snacks for this issue or this time period, then go right ahead. We need to make sure that we have enough food for 7 days that will make every family member be satisfied. We are not looking at providing Thanksgiving dinner. That's way too much food. We're looking at what do we need for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 7 days. So write out that menu. And you're gonna find that as well in this book. I'm gonna walk you through that. We need to know what your family likes. Because if I show you that these marinara sauces are a really good buy, a good value at Aldi, they're organic, and your family doesn't like it, then why would you buy it? So we need to know, what does your family like? What do they enjoy? So first of all, you did inventory. Second of all, you're writing a 7-day menu plan. Now, if you have popcorn once a week, make sure that's on your list, because you're going to want that in your prepper supply. Okay, steps 1, step 2, we've covered. Now we start building our list for what we're going to need going forward. We start with supplying a 7-day plan to work into a 30-day plan. So we write a 7-day plan and then we multiply it by 4, and we pretty much have 28 to 30 days of supply. So that is your number 1 goal. Then think about how you're going to manage cooking and how you're going to manage being prepared. So I have totes. You can see this tote's totally full. And also on this tote, you'll see a letter H. In my prepper notebook, I will have my totes listed, and one of it will say H, and it will say everything that is inventoried in this tote. So when I fill up my totes, I'm going to fill them up by a 7-day menu plan. Now that you've written a 7-day menu plan, gather all of the foods that you need to fulfill that menu. So let's just give you an example. Now all of these here are my Aldi finds. So I've been doing videos on what to stock up on in Aldi and Sam's and Costco, so be sure and go check out those videos. This is an excellent find at Aldi. It comes as a white cheddar and as the regular mac and cheese. The reason these are excellent is because they're under $1, and that's my go-to point, my price point that I love to buy. And they're 100% organic. The Kraft macaroni and cheese and the Annie's macaroni and cheese is just organic pasta. And everything else is just the junk. So it's very easy to think, oh, you grab it, you got organic, and it's not. This is 100% organic. So that's important. 99 cents. These are the perfect food to stock up on because they're a quick fix, and I can do so much with these as the base of any meal. So an example of that, I could take, cook 1 box. So I've got kind of a cheesy flavor with some pasta. That's always satisfying. I could add some marinara sauce. I could add a jar of marinara. I could add a can or some other dried beans that I cooked. And I have the perfect meal. I've got my cheese, I've got my pasta, I've got my beans for a protein, and I've got some marinara sauce just to kind of bring it all together. This is kind of like, interesting, it has 2 fronts. This is kind of like making your own hamburger helper. Now, I will admit, I did serve that to my family when they were growing up. Okay, never again, because I could do it myself, just this easy. So this is a very inexpensive meal because typically the marinara sauce is going to cost usually about $1.50, $1.70. Not a bad price point. This is $1 and my beans are under $1. So that's a really good dollar figure for a meal. Now if I had some fresh lettuces or fresh things out of my garden to add to it, perfect dinner. If I had some applesauce I already had made up, because I usually make my applesauce once a year for the whole year, I have a perfect meal. And it doesn't matter if we're under stress for different situations, I can feed my family well. So these are really good ideas. Now, I could also, instead of beans or in addition to the beans, I could actually add some tuna or some salmon. And you're thinking, oh, that doesn't sound good. It's actually very good. or if I had some canned meat, like some chicken or some ground beef or some ground venison. All of that could be added into this. So that's a meal. Now, with us just being 2 people, that will actually create leftovers. So I'm going to have meals for that's going to be at least 3 meals, just out of these simple ingredients. So if that's on my menu for one day, which is probably going to be at least 2 meals, then that's going to go in my tote. Okay, so let me pull this over here for you. So I'm going to have some beans, and I'm going to go ahead and add some salmon to it as well. So that's a meal. Now, my breakfasts are typically, if we're in a dire circumstance, it's going to be oatmeal. Now, oats are a crop that is grown that is sprayed with glyphosate, so you need to be aware of that. So if you buy regular oats in the store that are not organic, you're going to have glyphosate on them. So just be aware of that. So it's not always your best option. If it's what you can afford, then we have to be doing lots of vitamin C, lots of parsley, lots of carrots to help contain that chemical and get it out of our body as quick as possible. But if you do oats for breakfast, then make sure you have oats in your tote. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. That was just an easy one. Now, what else I need is I'm going to need some type of oil. You're always going to need oil in the diet, a healthy fat. So you would choose avocado oil, olive oil, you would use some coconut oil, or you could use some ghee. Price point wise, this is the most expensive, but shelf wise, this is the most stable. These 2 are extremely stable and do very well in your storage. So I would make sure in this tote I had some type of a fat that we could work with. So fat just helps meals taste better. If I have a fat like an olive oil or an avocado oil, I can make an instant salad dressing. But another tip for salad dressing is to use salsa. Salsa is a very good salad dressing, and just a couple scoops on your salad, you haven't added very many calories, and it just is very economical, especially at Aldi, and you can actually get it organic. So I would definitely have this in my tote as well. So going over what I have. So when you shop at Aldi to stock up on, you can get the organic sugars. They've got a brown sugar and a regular cane sugar. It says they're organic. My husband is a ketchup person, so if you have a ketchup person in your family, make sure you have ketchup to stock up on. And I will stock up on the non-BPA lined tomato sauce because I can use this to make almost any meal that I want. Now, if I have room in my refrigerator, I'm going to stock up on some of the block cheeses. Now, ideally, I prefer you to have raw cheese, but that may not be possible when we're stocking up. Now, these cannot go in my totes. This is only if you have refrigerator space. You can freeze these. If you've got extra freezer space, you need to fill up because you always keep your freezer full to the max because that helps it to stay cold, especially if power goes off. But these can be frozen. They will be a little crumbly when you thaw them out and use them, but that's okay. But these can be frozen. Buying block cheese versus already shredded cheese, first of all, this is more economical. And second of all, which is most important, is the shredded cheese has lots of chemicals and fillers to keep it from sticking. So always buy block cheese. So you could stock up on these at Aldi. They have all the different varieties and store them in whatever refrigerator space you have, and they will last months, if not a couple years, because of the way they're packaged. Okay, now, this I would not put in storage as far as like in the different places around my home where I put my prepper supplies, but I do keep this in my pantry. And these are winter squashes. So you can have the acorn squash, the butternut squash, some of your sweet potatoes. If they're kept in a cool, dry place, you could store enough for an entire year and not have any problems. And so just make sure you have a cool, dry, dark place and they will do well. No moisture and no heat. And so this makes an excellent filling meal. So I'm not going to put it in my totes. It's not going to go in my places where I put my totes, but I can put this in both my kitchen pantry and in my laundry room pantry. So those are good to stock up on. These are actually really good to grow. So you grow them in the summer, harvest them, and then have an entire pantry. Probably, I don't know about your family. For us, 4 of these per winter is enough. That's about all my husband will take. I love butternut squash, especially the soup, but it just makes a delicious salad. Either it's cooked and cubed up. I've got a recipe for that in my Daniel Fast book, Or you could shred it raw and put it on your salads. So much you can do with this. It's very filling, very high fiber, and lots of beta carotene. Okay, so sweeteners. A sweetener can also be your maple syrup, or if you're very fortunate to get local raw honey. That's the ultimate, because you know exactly who handled it and was there any processing. That's my favorite sweetener to have. So besides the mac and cheese, which are the perfect prepper food, mac and cheese, marinara sauce, and beans, oh, you've got a meal. You could also be buying some of the, stocking up on the organic pastas. These will store for years. Yes, they will. I do put these in my totes and put them in storage. All right, looking at my shelf here. So always add in just a couple of these bags, Ziploc bags in your storage tote, just in case you need them for whatever reason. The goal is this: when you pull out a tote, it has everything in there that you need to make the meals that are on the list. Let me give you an idea when I open this up. So this tote is ready to go into storage. It has a little bit of free space, so I may add a few more things. But if I add a few more things, I've got to definitely add that to my list, because my list needs to be totally right. So I do have some pastas. I've got some yellow lentil pasta that would be high in fiber, high in nutrition. And then I did add in some of the goat mac and cheese that I found at the different stores. So I have some of those. I have a cleaning pad. I do have some steel cut oats. And I also added some seasoning packets. These are some organic vegetarian brown gravy mixes. So I could mix these in anything and come up with a very delicious meal. One of these mac and cheese, not that one, oh, this one, the white cheddar, if I added a brown sauce to that, that would be like a stroganoff. So that would be delicious. Okay, so I've got my pastas, I've got my beans, I've got my tomato sauce, got my tuna cans. I also like to stock up on pineapple in the can. So once again, non-BPA lining, but this gives us just a little bit of sweetness that we could mix in with anything. We could add it to our oats. We could add it to, if you have barley and you cook some barley, you could make it a sweet barley breakfast porridge type food and add some pineapple to it. So canned pineapple is in almost every one of my totes. Oh, this is another really good one. Peanut butter. Peanut butter will store well as long as it's not opened. It will separate, so you're going to have the oil on top, and we want to definitely have the organic. So this is a food my husband loves to eat, so we always have peanut butter in every tote. I want every tote to last, I mean, ideally it would be a week, but that's a lot of food. So there are times I can stretch a tote to make all 7 meals, because we'll do leftovers. And don't forget to add fasting. Maybe you fast 1 or 2 or 3 meals throughout the week to save food as well. I do have a canister of granola in here, one of the prepackaged ones from Augustin Farms. So that would be either a breakfast, or I could add it on top of the pineapple and it would be good. Put that back in there. Oh, I had some leftover lemonade juices from some events that we did, and so I started putting them in my totes. I'm hoping I can get this out. I started putting them in my totes because I had it on hand. These were left over from an event. I decided to throw them in my totes, just 1 per tote, just so we'd have just kind of a refreshing drink. So you never know why you're going to be getting into the tote. Is it because of sickness and someone's unemployed? Is it because storms, because the power went out? Or is it because of social unrest, which could very likely happen? So just to have odds and ends like that, I want a purpose for everything that's in here. I have some Seitenbacher burger mixes. These are a vegetarian burger, very similar to a falafel, if you're familiar with falafels. So it makes a dish like that. And so I've got my salmon. I have salmon in every tote because it's a very healthy, fatty fish, and that helps with our brain. And I always have an oil in here, and then pretty much what I've shared with you. Now, this, not totally a healthy choice, but it's my husband's go-to. So you have to think of every family member. So yes, I have a container of peanuts in each tote. Now, how many totes do you need? Well, that depends on your family size and how long you are prepared for. So considering this tote would last us, I think I can make this tote last 1 week, because this is more than enough steel cut oats for my husband to have every morning for breakfast. And then we have, the sweeteners in here. I have a sweetener in every one, especially the pineapple. I usually put some sweeteners like this inside the totes, so that when I open this tote, I have everything I need. If there's a specific seasoning that you need to make a meal that you've put the ingredients in here for, add the seasoning as well. If you're not putting in an unopened, see, that's the other thing. We want things that are not opened. We do not want any of the seals broken. We want them to stay as tightly sealed as possible. And there's a few totes that I will have dishwashing liquid, just because that means I'm stocked up on it and ready to go. But I will have it written down in my notes. So in my inventory sheet for bucket number H, letter H, it's going to say exactly what's in the tote for letter H. So I can look in my sheets and say, oh, and let's just say there was a crisis and we had to live on what I had prepared, what I was stocked up on. I could go through my inventory list and I could say, okay, let's have this week. So go get, tote letter I, and then I already know what's in it and I know how I can cook it. So I try to vary them up, not make them all identical, because people can get tired of eating the same thing. And then make sure you have an inventory to say exactly what's in that tote. Now, there was a time, and I was in my first version of the Proverbs 31 Prepper book, I mentioned vitamins, to stock up on vitamins, but they go bad. And that was an expensive experiment, a learning time that I had. So vitamins go bad, protein bars will go bad, protein powder may go bad as well. So a lot of people use those as prepper supplies, and I really love the value of those foods, but they don't store well. And so be very careful about those. So this is just kind of a way to get you started. So start with 7 days. First of all, do your inventory, then do your menu. Once you've done a 7-day menu, go and do a second 7 days, but try to vary it up a little bit. And if you could come up with 4 weeks, and all 4 weeks are a different menu plan, your family's going to be very happy with you. But even if you have 2 or 3 mainstay meals, it's like, okay, I know that meal, I can cook that meal, I can put it on the table and they'll be happy. That's okay, because we all have about 2 or 3 meals that we have every week that are very similar. But varying it up every once in a while in the different totes have a surprise. Now, in the Aldi finds, I say to make sure you have chocolate. The chocolate does not go in my totes, because my totes are stored in a place that is temperature controlled, but I don't want anything random to happen. So my chips will stay in my pantry in the laundry room. I have a hidden box in there so my husband doesn't know where they are. Otherwise he would be nibbling on the chips. So these do not go in my prepper boxes, but I do sometimes put cocoa powder depending on my recipes. I might seal them up in a Mylar bag, some cocoa powder, depending on what I'm planning on making with that tote. So I hope this has been very helpful. I'm trying to see if I missed anything. Nope. Now, this is separate than my buckets of wheat. And let me show you my buckets of wheat. Now, I wanted to share with you my buckets of grain. So I have 6 of these buckets, and they each contain a different grain. So this is my bucket for hard white. And so the beauty of these buckets is they are food grade, which is good. And I have purchased Gamma lids, so that's Gamma. I'll put a link to those down below. Gamma lids seal the bucket. They also make it, this is more important than the sealing to me, they make it so I can open it with just 1 finger. I can pop the lid off and I can get into my grain. This is so much easier. If you've ever opened those paint cans where you're prying it open, no one wants to paint like that anymore. So once you get a bucket, many times when you buy grain already in a bucket, it's going to still have the original lid, and you have to pull the strap off and then pry it up. Well, once you take it off, get rid of that and then get you a Gamma lid. I have different colors, so you can buy all different colors of lids. Like I said, I'll put a link to that down below. I have all different colors of lids, and I use a different color for each variety. So my hard white, my hard red, my soft white are all gonna have different colors. My corn has a color, einkorn has a color, And then I have spelt and kamut also. So I keep my buckets, my grains in my buckets, and I can seal it tight with no problem. So knowing I have, 25, 35, 45 pounds of grain in my bucket that goes in my inventory list, and I know I can make so many different foods if I have my own grains that I can mill myself. That's going to give us the nutritional value that my family needs and deserves. So make sure you have buckets of grain. If you think back into the story of Joseph, what did he gather for 7 years? He gathered grain because grain is what sustains the people. It's highly nutritious, and I've talked about that in the Healthy Treasures Cookbook, the Treasures of Healthy Living Bible Study, the Treasures of Health Nutrition Manual. Yes, all of these books that I've written are to teach you the value of what is in grain. I know there's many books out there we're not going to talk about, but they have led you to believe otherwise that is different from God's design. And so always remember, our God loves us, and he would never create a food that can cause harm, that he called good for us. There's things that people eat that he didn't say was good. In fact, he said, you need to avoid that. And for many reasons we don't always understand, but grain is an example of a food that shows how much he loves us. Now, has man messed up the grain, the bread products? Yes. The grain is not a GMO. That's another false teaching that's out there, but it is heavily sprayed. So when you buy grain, make sure you buy unsprayed grain. And then you will not have all the glyphosate and the other chemicals that are on it, that are on other products. So you can get all of these grains that I use in a chemical-free form, and you can even buy them in not GMO, but in organic varieties. So whatever helps you to be pleased with what you're buying. Those that have a gluten intolerance sometimes can tolerate the real food, whereas you can't tolerate the fake foods in the store. So grains are very important to stock up on. As far as price point, they used to be the most economical to stock up on, but the price has been going up quite quickly. So I would stock up as soon as possible on your grains and know that you have them. And get yourself some buckets. This is a bucket I've had from the very beginning back in 2003. So yeah, they last. So get yourself some grains and make sure you have a grain mill, a hand crank that doesn't require any power, and then also the power mill like the mock mill. Make sure you check out that video. Now, here's something else I want you to realize that you can do extremely economical to build up your prepper supply, and that is making your own broth. All of my broths have been made with leftovers that I would have thrown away. So if you were to cook an entire chicken, like a rotisserie chicken, you just say, don't eat off the bones, debone it before you feed your family, take the bones, and I will make up to 8 quarts of chicken broth from one chicken. So I've already made back my money on that chicken. If I buy an organic chicken, it might be $15, but I made 8 quarts of chicken broth just from the bones, not to mention the number of meals we used it to eat. So chicken bones, I've even made broth out of venison bones. So if you have someone in your family who hunts for deer, then you could take those bones and turn it into broth. Now, it's not my favorite flavor, but I could totally use that in soups or making other recipes. And it was free broth. And a good organic broth can cost, $4 for 2 quarts. Another idea is all of your kitchen scraps, your vegetable scraps, potatoes, peelings, all of that are clean and washed. And you peel the potatoes, put that in a bag in your freezer to make your own vegetable broth. Now, once these are pressure sealed and pressure canned, in your pressure cooker, they can be put in your prepper supplies. So adding 1 quart minimum to every tote would be very good because it's going to give you a cooking liquid and a flavor boost. So that's another way of being prepared. Now this looks kind of disgusting, but this is canned meat. So many times when we get extra deer meat from some of our friends who hunt, I will ground it up. We have our own meat grinder, I guess that's what you call it, to make ground beef. Ground deer meat, and then I will just pressure can it. So this is sealed, and it could go into my totes as well. I could add this to that, to the macaroni and cheese with the pasta sauce, and they would think they're having spaghetti. So these, once they're pressure canned, will last many years. It could be 10, 20 years that they will last. if they're sealed well. Always check your seals before putting them into a tote to be stored somewhere. You don't want it going bad somewhere else in your house and all of a sudden it smells like someone died in your house. You do not want that. I have had that happen in my other pantry. It's like, man, something's dead in here. And I learned I started checking my seals and I found one that had not sealed, and actually it was the meat. It was disgusting. It was awful. You will know, but don't put it somewhere where you're not going to be around. So these are important, items, and they're going to stretch your budget. So if you're like, Annette, we don't do grains, well, then you're going to have to find another staple to satisfy your family that you can fit in your budget. So I just want to thank you for letting me share this with you. I could go on for hours because I love prepping. I have more confidence when I know I have everything I need. And it kind of bothers me if we're making a dish or we're putting a dinner on the table for the entire family when everyone's here and I run out of something. And I ask myself, how could I run out? Of course, I know I'm not going to go into my deep storage prepper supplies to go find that one item and take it out of a tote. I could, but I hate it if I run out of something when I'm such a good prepper. So I have to keep good notes to remind myself what I have on hand and what I run out of in my kitchen pantry. And then if I take it from the other pantry, I need to replace it when I go to the grocery store the next time. So these are tips. The main thing is I want you to be confident in the kitchen, confident in knowing you can cook for your family under any circumstance, confident in knowing whatever social crisis decides to pop up, you can handle this. You can take care of your family. You can stay strong in the Lord and know. And this is another question. Some people keep asking me, is it Christ-like, is it Christian-like to be a prepper? The answer is yes. Proverbs 31 tells you that. And just the fact that in where I live, we have seasons. We have different produce, different vegetables, different foods that are available in different seasons. So a winter squash is created by God to store well. And it comes at the end of the harvest season. You could store it all winter long to enjoy. That is being a prepper. That is knowing your family has food for the winter. And Proverbs 31 woman describes that. She knows that her family is ready for the winter. She has the coats, she has the hats, she has the food. Well, our winter may be a long winter if we don't have food supplied. So this is why I wanted to teach you this. This is so important. And I look forward to reading your comments so we can start a conversation. If you don't already have my Proverbs 31 book, you might want to check that out just to give you a good notebook to use and more tips besides what I've shared with you today. So this is a fantastic accompaniment to your prepper supplies. And I even had one of my prepper friends read it recently to say, hey, what do you think about this book? Should I make any changes? And he says, you've got stuff in there I've never read in another prepper book. So there you go. I just want to share that with you. I am Annette Rader from thebiblicalnutritionist.com. Please download the 7 steps to amazing biblical health. This is the perfect place to get started to gain back your health and not be worried about trying to overcome health issues or weight loss. I am always here to serve you God's recipe for excellent health. And the number 1 ingredient, you know it, say it with me, God loves you. He's loved you from the moment of conception. He loves every bit about you. And He's always there for you. Thanks for watching.